when I agreed, Patrick asked if I would speak, and when I agreed, I asked who I was going to be speaking with, and they said, well, you'll be speaking along with a long list of people, including Joanne Bowman. And I said, well, now, am I before Joanne or after? So I've been doing this a while. So they said, well, you're right after Joanne. I said, well, we're going to have to talk about it. So not only do I have to go before Joanne, so people will actually think what I say has some important meaning, I want to introduce Joanne. So I get to introduce Joanne. I've never been able to do that before. She and I served in the Oregon legislature together. Not only did we serve together, we sat next to each other. More than once, the Speaker of the House threatened to have us removed as two parents, getting each other in trouble in the back of the House chamber. Joanne, I remember sitting and watching her give speeches. Just as I was sitting here, she would sit to my right, and she would stand up, and what I was always struck with, she would never use notes. I've always had to use notes just to keep myself on track. She got up and she gave these powerful speeches on abuse of power, on racism, on economic injustice. In fact, one day, a powerful lobbyist down in Salem came up to me and said, I think Joanne just likes to give powerful people help. And I said, well, Joanne just tells the truth, and they think they're not. Ladies and gentlemen, Joanne Bowman.
President Clark, the Commissioner, on a good day. He was very kind to me in his introduction. I was sitting here thinking of all the things he could have shared. You guys look absolutely beautiful out there. But before I start my presentation, I'd like to ask everybody who is 25 years old or younger to please stand. Old fogies like me don't like to admit is that every significant movement in this country happened because of the youth. Every single one of them. Because even during the civil rights movement, even when Dr. King was being brutalized and adults were being brutalized for the sheer right to vote, to live where you wanted to eat where you wanted to, there were young people out there saying, I'm tired of this. This is not okay. Now the adults, because they had been around for a while, and they understood that changing laws takes time. The adults would say to the young people, it's going to take a little while. Just be patient. It's okay. It's not going to happen today, but it's going to happen. Right? It was the youth that said, oh, no, this is not acceptable, and I will not bow down to an unjust law. I refuse to allow people to tell me because of the color of my skin I cannot be whatever I want to be. It was the young people in this movement, in this country, at this time, that when Barack Obama 2 years ago said, I want to be your president of the United States of America, it was the young people that said, yes, it is possible, yes we can. That's what he said, and that's what the young people said with him. Yes we can. I gotta tell you, old fogies like me, I was sitting back saying, look, I grew up in the United States of America, okay? I know that white people are not going to go behind a booth and vote for a black man for the president of the United States. It just ain't going to happen. I'm sorry. I'd like to see it happen. I'd like to live long enough to see that reality. But I couldn't believe. And not because I'm not an optimist, because I am an optimist. But when I look at the dropout rate of African Americans in this community, that's why I couldn't believe. When I look at the high incarceration rate of African Americans Americans in our community. That's why I couldn't believe. Because how is it possible, on one hand, for us to vote an African American president and then ignore the daily inequality that exists in our community? How is that possible? How can we separate this brave man who put himself out there and said, I will be your president? But guess what? He says, I'm president of all the people. All the people. Imagine that. When was the last time a president told us they were going to be president of all the people? Right? I want to thank our young people. Because they believed, we started believing it's possible. This is really possible. And then what happened? We started seeing primary race after primary race, and all of a sudden, it was, is it possible? Then there was one Democratic candidate left. And then we were like, oh, maybe they'll vote Republican, because could they really vote an African American man into the highest office in this land? Is that possible? Well, I am happy to say that in my 52nd year on this earth, it happened. I didn't think it would in my lifetime, but it did. And I thank the youth, because without the belief of the youth early on, we would not be at the cusp of this historic time. Now let's talk economic bailout packages. Let's talk economic stimulus. Now, we got a Congress that decided that we'd give the industry that screwed up our economy $1 trillion. Now you would think if you're going to give somebody that kind of money, that you would say, okay, now here's what I want you to do with it. Right? You would think there'd be some criteria, right? Wouldn't you think there'd be some criteria? There'd be some very specifics of what to do with that money, right? And so, as regular people, we're thinking, $780 billion, how do you even wrap your mind around that? And we're going to give it to the people that created the problem. But you know, we're people that believe. We have faith. So we said, okay, they gave half the money. We'll see what they do with that half. So, did they do the stuff they told us they were going to do? Did they stop foreclosures?
Hell no.
Did they stop job losses?
Hell no.
Did they stop companies from closing down?
Hell no.
And so, we must be asking ourselves now, are we the stupidest people on the planet? I mean, what is wrong with a country that would give $1 trillion to people that messed up our entire economy and then put nothing in place to hold them accountable for it? So here we are. We got the governor of Oregon talking about economic stimulus. We even got our good city council talking about economic stimulus. Here's the question I got for people that want to talk economic stimulus. I want to see in writing. How are we going to get poor people employed with this economic stimulus dollar? How do we make sure that our youth are first in line to learn skills that are going to serve them for the rest of their life? That the people who have not benefited in our society are the first ones to benefit from an economic stimulus package for the people. Dr. King understood that you cannot have civil rights without economic justice. He understood that. And it is our job to continue to do the work that Dr. King started. We can't sit up and rest on our laurels because we have an African American president. You know how hard the road's going to be for our first African American president. He's got the biggest mess of any other